Big love, folks. So, here goes a couple addendums and apologies and corrections on my part. Earlier I mentioned the use of worldview warfare being a tactic of the Germans, and that was a bit of a overgeneralization on my part. I apologize. I love the German folks, big time. I should have been more accurate to say, that was the Nazi war machine from the World War. And that word, the term, worldview warfare, that is Weltanschauungskrieg. It's quite a long word. Weltanschauungskrieg, all one word. If nothing else, man, those Germans can put words together like you wouldn't believe. They're just brilliant on another level. You know, breakthroughs, technological, linguistical breakthroughs. So, no disrespect. Also, mentioned, pagans a few times, and that is a complex term. It's a very complicated term. There's a very nuanced history to it. And from our perspective here today, it's hard to look back and see exactly where that came from. But I will point out that pagans, in general, in its time of origin, that word was used to describe inlanders, people who were not on the coastlines. The Venetians had already influenced and had their way with. So the inlanders still held to more earth-based sciences, and the word pagan was a pejorative at one time in human history, and it referred to a captured slave in the gladiator's arena, and the slave was uncircumcised, and therefore his pa was gone. His pa was not visible. It was sheathed. His sword was sheathed. And the tradition of circumcision has much to do with a warrior of a certain sect of religious fanaticism being having his sword unsheathed at all times, ready to go, with giving the appearance of a permanent erection. And this goes back to this missing segment at the top of the pyramid. This is a signature, a circumcised indicator. This is pointing to the bris, the ritual of the bris, and that taking off the tip, just the tip. That is all very much a signature to that Judaic tradition. So having that tip cut off is significant to the cultural origin of these signs and symbols. And I highly recommend, if anybody has a Bible on hand, check out Genesis 34. Read the whole thing through. It's a trade agreement between a group of pagans, uncircumcised culture. We're having a trade agreement with Jacob and his brothers. And Jacob and his brothers made the pagans agree to go through the entire city and put out a trade agreement mandate that everybody cut off the end of their genitals. And so they put soldiers at the gates. I believe there's a gate going in two directions, north and south maybe, east and west, who knows. But everybody who came through the gates had to get the snip snip, the Caesars Caesar's under this sign conquer. Victory, you know. So once the scissors had snipped everybody, 3 days later, the massive infection took over all the men of the city. Every man in the city had a nice little infection right where it counts. And on that third night, Jacob and his posse, they all grabbed their swords. There we have that phallic, erect, ready to go, unsheathed. And they ransacked the city and slaughtered everybody and took all the booty. So, you know, that is a warning to anybody who's considering, you know, dealing in trade agreements that have to do with the flesh. You know, you don't give up any sovereignty of your flesh, because it will be used against you when the infection sets in. And you agreed to it. That's on you. You know, these are cautionary tales. That's the word I'm trying to think of. They're cautionary tales. And when you read the Bible, if it has no other value whatsoever, just see the cautionary tales that are being put before your eyes. And it's on you if you choose to ignore it and, you know, live with the hubris of believing it cannot happen again, because it is a playbook, much like the Art of War. Quick point, you know, the Art of War has 13 chapters. There are 13 moon cycles. So we are dealing with a group of individuals who covet the moon cycles, the feminine, over the masculine. They work in the cover of night under darkness. They do their they work in the underworld. They prefer the shadows. Here we have that hidden hand very much at play. And, you know, I am being vague on purpose. You know, it's very hard to connect the Masons to the Templars to the Jesuits to, you know, all these different orders to the Mithraic cult. But you can see that if it ain't broke, they're not trying to fix it. They will be using this recipe for your children's children. And it is good to see through the plan. So I want to get back on that $2 bill. I had a kind of a little malfunction earlier. I was unable to show very well what I was pointing at. Here's a better look. So down here you have 2 and the last 3 letters of dollars. 2 hours. 2 R's. And first of all, I see towers, but there are 2 R's. You know, as I went through and, you know, looked at some of the some websites concerning finance and bankers, you know, this coefficient of the determination, honestly, that went a little over my head. I'm not a banker. I don't speak legalese, but I do know the terms of art when I see them. You know, Black's Law is more my dictionary for terms of art. But no doubt there is a Black's Law equivalent for bankers. And I would not be surprised if R2D2 had much to do with this banking formula for, you know, some steganography for the bankers to signal each other in our art and talk right over our heads. And, you know, even our children, you know, they use this R2D2 and it seems so innocent. And, you know, that puts us in the position of the fool card to be looking up at the sky when in fact it's happening right under our nose and we may be likely to fall off a cliff. So just wanted to point that out. You know, I'm a bit out of my element when it comes to banking. Most of us are. That is by design. But also, you know, 2 R's kind of lends to Albert Pike's recipe, his dark prophecy of the 2 wars. And much of that prophecy, Albert Pike's prediction, has come true, and we have to respect that. That the great works has much to do with, they love their W's. WW1, WW2. We talked about www.com. So looking into the significance of the W, we find this Pythagorean symbology. W is the omega, and this is the symbol of the omega, this circle with a line through it. It is the great O, and the O is the W. And isn't that strange that here we go again with some O's and W's, the OWL, the God of the great O. Then, the owl, like we mentioned, Moloch and the owl have the ability to turn their head 360 degrees. I believe it's the goddess of wisdom. She is also the goddess of strategy. It's not coming to me, but there's Minerva. Is it Minerva? I believe. Often is depicted as having full knowledge, full awareness, that ability to spin her head 360 degrees and see her surroundings. So I just wanted to put out that when we say WW1, WW2, we are omega omega. We're saying omega omega, and omega in Greek is an 8. Numeral 800 numerologically. The great O is an 8, and to say cross-culturally, to say WW, omega omega, we are saying 88. And 88 is a signifier of Mercury. Always has, always will be. Mercury has the 88-day orbit. Also, we know that, mercenaries are, they are, shall we say, worshippers of battle, of war, We're not just dealing with Mars, we're also dealing with Mercury. And here in the $1 bill, I have quite a few symbols brought forward. It's my graffiti here. But I brought out the Mercury symbol here in the O-N-E. And in fact, that's not just a Mercury symbol. When you add all this together, you get the Monas Hieroglyphica. And that is a John Dee icon, a symbol with deep, rich, long history. Goes way back. And just one more signifier here. This is the sign of air. This A with a broken top, that is an air sign. And Jupiter, Zeus, it is a gas giant. It is the Moon Eye, like we said, the great red spot of Jupiter. So this is definitely a Jupiterian symbol, that pyramid with the eye above. I believe personally that the great red spot is collapsing. It's diminishing rapidly, very rapidly. May happen in our lifetime. And that the Great Reset, G.R.S, Great Red Spot, Great Reset, it's all coordinated, and that's no coinkydink. So that is a symbol of air. This, this eagle, conceivably, is a club. I could turn that sideways. It's a bit of a club, and the clubs is a symbol of fire. So in the tarot, air is signified by swords, and fire is signified by clubs. So what we may have here is the sword of fire. Very possible that, like we said, the history being written by the sword of fire. Back on my Analema video, I think that they are implying that history is written with money. Follow the money, que bono. It will tell you the story every time. So I just want to close off with some words from a great master and some of my own addendums to those words. Not that I presume to supersede anybody here, but be wise as serpents. That is the entire point of what I'm bringing forth here. Be gentle as doves. There we have a earth and air combination symbolically. And just to bring it full circle, I like to say, dance like fire until even underwater you don't get wet. So that's your big circle back. Bringing it back to where we started. Ovid means the egg. Ovid is ovoid is an egg shape, and these people are definitely into serpent eggs. Planting ideas, impregnating the mind with signs and symbols of the snake. And so let's just bring this word into reverse. Let's flip it. Let's flip the script. Yggdrasil is in reverse lizard egg. And the reason Yggdrasil and the lizard egg all go back to Jupiter is much to do with Electric Universe in Immanuel Velikovsky and the original trauma of humanity. We'll get on that one next. Big love, everybody. Keep it strong.